Hello friends. Today I thought we might take another look at 5 more records from my vinyl record collection. We can take a look at the album art, inside and out, look at the vinyl itself, see if there are any bonus materials, and maybe talk just a little bit about each one. As in the previous videos with the vinyl records, I think the best way to do this is in release date order. So today we are starting with this jazz classic from 1964. This is the Getz Gilberto album. Which is really a classic jazz album. Features a lot of bossa nova style music from Brazil, with Stan Getz playing saxophone and Joao Gilberto singing and playing guitar. Gilberto's wife, Astrud, is also on the album singing. Here's the back artwork. This one is very reflective. I apologize if you can't read particular something because of that. So on the inside we have a nice picture of the recording session, track listings, and I believe on this side we have a bit of history about the project and its historical significance after all of these years. I think one of the most famous songs from this album has to be The Girl from Ipanema, as well as Corcovado and Desafinado. I apologize if I'm butchering the pronunciations. And the vinyl itself is a black vinyl on the Verve record label. Feels fairly thick. This might be another 180 gram reissue version. But if you're into jazz, Brazilian music, bossa nova, this is definitely a classic and probably the most famous album in that style, with 2 very talented main musicians and really talented and wonderful supporting musicians as well. Next up, from 1972, we have Nick Drake's final album, Pink Moon, which has to be one of my favorite albums of all time. There's the front album art. Nick Drake is a sort of enigmatic figure in, I think, the world of 1970s and late 60s music. He didn't really perform live, and I believe he only put out 3 albums. This one was his last and most stripped back. It's really just him and his guitar. The title track also has him playing piano on it, but it's very austere and haunting. And I think Nick Drake himself had kind of gone into obscurity with all but the most knowledgeable music fans until I think the early 2000s. Volkswagen used the song Pink Moon in one of their ads, and that really launched a resurgence in his popularity. Here's the inside of the gatefold. We have tracks and their lyrics here, along with the credits. Sort of an inverted photograph of Nick Drake there. And take a look at this sleeve. It's might be hard to see on camera, but it's got a little bit of a artwork on it. I think this reissue is meant to make this sleeve look like an older version of the original, maybe. The vinyl itself is black on the Island label. And as I said, this is one of my favorite albums. Really can listen to it front to back with no skips. It's pretty short. I think it's even less than 30 minutes long. But Pink Moon, Place to Be, From the Morning, those are all very, very good songs. And actually, one of the lyrics from the Morning is on Nick Drake's tombstone. So if you are a fan of simple acoustic music, singer-songwriter, haunting melodies, very velvety, smooth voice, interesting tunings of the guitar, or if you're a fan of more modern artists like Jose Gonzalez, and you haven't heard of Nick Drake, definitely check out Pink Moon from 1972. Next up we have a band that needs no introduction, I'm sure. This is Radiohead's Kid A from the year 2000. This reissue is on the XL Recordings label. Here's a look at the album artwork. I think Radiohead consistently has some of the best album covers in the business. And I think Radiohead is one of those bands that so much has been written about that it can drive some people away. And they're certainly not to everyone's taste. Here's a look at the interior of the gatefold and its artwork. Continuation of the style from the front. I think this is probably my favorite album cover of theirs. And I think maybe my favorite Radiohead album. This is a double LP record, so we have two vinyl discs. This is what they both look like on this particular reissue. Black vinyl with the XL Recordings logo. I think this album was not super well received when it first came out because it's so different than their previous three albums. But in my opinion, this is the album that took Radiohead from being a good rock band to being an all-time great band, because they were willing to try new things and push boundaries and bring their audience along with them, which is not the easiest thing to do when you are an artist, I'm sure, and you want to please your fans, and if you've achieved some level of popularity, you don't want to lose it. So they took a risk, but I think in the long run, it certainly paid off with albums like this that pushed the boundaries of what rock music could be in the year 2000. But if for some reason you haven't given Radiohead a chance, or you've never listened to this particular album, if you are into experimental music, rock music with a strong electronic instrumentation, definitely give Kid A from 2000 a listen. This next album is another personal favorite of mine. This is Interpol, Turn on the Bright Lights, from the year 2002. Interpol is a band from New York, if you're not aware. And I think what most people would call a post-punk revolution rock genre. Turn on the Bright Lights, I believe was their first full-length album. It's one of those albums that I think is perfect for a cold winter day. Inside here we have just a single sheet artwork with credits. On one side, picture of the band, and on the other, another photograph and the track listings. The vinyl on this issue is black with a grayscale Matador Records center logo. This album is, well, and the band, especially in their earlier work, were very similar to and obviously inspired by Joy Division and bands like Television. So if you like dark, gothic rock that has driving guitars, really cool athletic bass lines, lyrics that don't always make a lot of sense, but seem to fit the music well. And you haven't heard Turn on the Bright Lights by Interpol from the year 2002. Have a listen. And finally, for the 5 that I pulled this time, we have let's say, a much less known band. This is an album from the band Bound Stems, who were from Chicago. They had, I guess, technically 3 albums. I consider the first one to be more of an EP. But this is their final album, The Family Afloat, on Flame Shuffle Records from 2008. Here's the reverse artwork. This particular issue is 180 gram virgin vinyl, first edition of 500, and this one is number 464. On the inside we have the songs and their lyrics. Continued on the rear of this single sheet page. And we also have the album credits. Bound Stems was mostly active, I think, from around 2002 through maybe the end of the decade, 2008 or 9, when this album came out. I think, like most bands, they just kind of dissolved and went their own way. Some ended up in other bands. Some went on to regular careers. But I remember seeing them at a show in New York at the Bowery Ballroom, and I had never really heard of them before, and it was a very cool experience. So since then, I've been a fan. I will say that even though this is their last album and the one that I'm showing, I think if you want to get a good primer on their sound, have a listen to their first album / EP, which is called The Logic of Building the Body Plan. I personally think that's their best collection of songs. But if you're a fan of indie rock, especially indie rock that has a bit of math rock influence, jangly guitars, historic references in their lyrics, both male and female singers, some synthesizer use in the instrumentation. I think you might like Bound Stems. And maybe their final album, The Family Afloat, from 2008. Well, those are the 5 that I brought to show to you and talk about today. As always, I really enjoy sharing these from my vinyl collection with you all, and I hope you enjoy it too. I would love to hear any ideas you might have for future content. If you enjoy these vinyl record ASMR videos, I would love to hear it. And I'm sure there will be more in the future. I hope this video finds you well and a little less anxious. Until next time, goodbye.